One pull, baby. One pull. That's how we do it around here. If you didn't see the earlier videos, the story is this is a $250 chainsaw. The other saws we've been running are $500 and $700.
We're going to check the low idle RPM. It should be around 2,800.
But twice in a row, we've bumped that speed up. This time we went from 25 seconds down to 19. Hey, it's Brock here from Rock Hill Farms, and today I'm going to try to show you how to take an old chainsaw and get it to run better without spending a bunch of money. I'm kind of a chainsaw hoarder. I've got a whole line of them up over there, but a lot of them I don't use that much, and it just feels like they don't run that great. And I don't have the expertise to try to do a tune-up on them, so I found someone who did. Now, what I like to do is an exchange of services, and since Mike here is going to try to help me fix my chainsaws, what I'd like to do for him is try to help him with his YouTube channel. I talk to a couple people a week who are starting off to do what I do, and it's a real challenge trying to grow a channel, learn how to make videos, and get viewers. So if you like chainsaws or equipment or farming or anything like that, go check out Mike's channel. There'll be a link in the description. Now, let's get out these chainsaws and see what we can get done. Sound like a plan?
Yes, sir. Let's get it.
Right now, Mike's putting a new chain on my Steel MS250. That's the oldest chainsaw I have. It's about 5 years old. I used it really hard and heavy the first year. I was running it all the time. Then I got bigger saws. Now I hardly ever touch it. And last time I ran it, I thought this thing's kind of a dog. And the reason we're picking it is because it's an affordable chainsaw that most of you guys can probably afford. We're also going to do probably a couple of other chainsaws too, but we're going to start with this one because it's a very common saw. As soon as he gets a brand new chain on it, we're going to do a cut test with it, see how fast it cuts. Then we'll do our modifications, then we'll do the same test again. And, you know, I don't know what kind of condition this saw's in. Maybe it's in great shape, and maybe it won't make a difference, but we're going to find out. I would call myself a poor, low-quality chainsaw owner. I run them, then I hang them up until the next time I want to run them. And everything, whether it's your car or your chainsaw or your tractor, needs a little bit of TLC. So I try to standardize all my cutting tests by doing them exactly the same way. I'm not trying to cut fast. I'm trying to be consistent. So what I like to do is start the chainsaw and then start a timer. Let it warm up for a full minute, kind of rev it a little bit, get it, make sure it's good and warm. Then I make a cut down, up, down. I time 3 cuts, and I do that with every cut test. Well, guys, I'm a liar, but I'm doing it for your benefit. I said I was going to make 3 cuts, but it took 30 seconds to make 1 cut. I don't want to waste a minute and a half for every cut test we do. That was super slow, 29 seconds for 1 cut. I should have been able to do 3 in that time with the saw I normally run. But let's see if we can change anything by tinkering with this saw a little bit. So, what were your thoughts watching that saw run?
It's pretty slow, pretty sluggish. It does have a new chain, but I think we can check out the spark plug, check out the spark arrestor, the air filter. We might take a peek at the cylinder and just see the overall well-being of the saw.
He kind of told me start simple. You don't just walk up and start turning the adjustment screws. Start with the basics and go from there. Is that a mud dauber in there?
That is mud dauber. There's a couple of them. Let's get these out of there. That'll help.
I told you guys ahead of time that I was very poor at doing chainsaw maintenance, and I've ran this chainsaw for about 30 seconds in the last year. Those could provide insulation to keep the motor warm during winter time.
It's not awful. I've seen worse, but we'll get that clean. We'll go ahead and look at the spark plug while we're here.
They don't clog up that bad when you don't use them.
No, no they don't. Okay, now, since we have the spark plug out and I have it handy, we're gonna basically take a camera and stick down in the cylinder just to see how all of that looks. Make sure there's no excessive scoring or anything like that.
So if you want an inspection camera like this, I'll put a link in the description where you can get one of these. This is what we're looking at inside there.
Really mainly looking for any vertical score marks on the cylinder or anything. Like if it ran real lean, you could probably see where the piston's starting to melt away. Score marks can be caused from all of that. Wrong oil, if it ran lean.
So this saw has not been destroyed from that.
Piston looks great. Cylinder looks great.
Are you a guy that keeps your chainsaws clean?
I do. I try to keep them clean as much as possible. I'll even go as far as pulling the recoil start cover off and blowing all that stuff out.
Yeah, something I need to do a better job of. I watch Joe from the Okie Woodsman channel, and every time he's here, he cleans, you know, under his chain guard and everything. It's got to help the longevity of the saw. All right, so what are you looking for inside there?
So on chainsaws, all your air gets sucked in through the side here of your recoil starter. I'm just looking to make sure all that stuff's cleaned out and looking for any excessive buildup in here. If your saw is running off a little, you can check the distance between your flywheel and your coil and make sure that's right. That could be a causing factor of it not running correctly. That distance is normally a business card. It's got an actual measurement, but a business card will get you really
Is that
close.
something where you take those screws loose and you tweak that?
Yes, you can loosen both of these. They're T27 Torx, and that'll slide in and out to get your correct distance. There's magnets on the side of this flywheel. You want to spin the flywheel over to the coil where it kind of, you see it kind of magnetize, pull itself to it. Put it at that point and stick a business card in there or feeler gauge. So the next thing we're going to check is the spark arrestor and the muffler. If your two-stroke idles a lot, or if you run a lower ratio like a 32-to-1, 25-to-1, you're more apt to plug this up.
And I would say that I run 40-to-1, except that if you don't shake your fuel can up, then does that oil separate from it and you get a different mixture?
It potentially could, but it shouldn't.
You called this like a spark arrestor?
Yes.
I've never even heard that term. What's that mean?
It is a screen that is on the outlet side of your muffler that is, I mean, it's supposed to keep sparks from coming out, I guess. I don't know. I don't ever really see a lot of two strokes sparking.
So here's another question I don't know if you know the answer to. My 500i has a bark box on it, which kind of bypasses the exhaust a little bit. Mm-hmm. I wonder why they're not all like that. Probably government regulation, but could you just drill a hole in the front of that?
You could, but that's a government regulated thing. It's
illegal, so we're not going to do it with the camera on anyway. But I found I did not get a bark box on my 500i because I wanted more performance. I got it because I wanted my saw to not get hot as much. When I'm going sideways, cutting through a big stump and it's a slow cut, I worry about overheating the saw. And that bark box was like $80, and it's a permanent upgrade, so I feel like it's money well spent.
So that is the spark arrestor that's in the muffler, and a lot of times these little holes will get filled up with gunk. Carbon essentially is what it is. This one looks good, so we're not going to have to do anything to it, but to clean that, you would hold it with a pair of pliers and take like a butane torch to burn all that carbon off, and you'll be left with a...
That sounds like a tractor regen. Get it super hot and let it burn all the gunk off.
Yep.
This is what is known as a manual regen on a Stihl MS250. My expectation was that when we pulled this saw open, we'd find big problems. And we did find one problem. There's a bunch of gunk and dirt packed in here in the top. But I expected that screen to be clogged, or scoring on the cylinder or the spark plug was in bad shape, and we didn't really find any of that.
No.
So basically at this point, the only potential thing that I'm aware of is if the carburetor needs adjusted. And I don't need a really technical answer, but could you try to explain to me, like I'm 5 years old, what these two adjustments are on this chainsaw?
So there's actually three. There's one in here.
That's L.
There's a LA. H is your high idle. LA is your low side fuel mixture, fuel, oil mix, and L is just your idle.
What would tell you, is it the sound? Is it the performance? What would tell you what you want to adjust here?
To me, it would be the sound and how it's running. It didn't sound, when you were using it earlier, it didn't sound like it was way off, but we may be able to gain just a little bit of time by tweaking on it just a little bit.
He said this was supposed to run at like 1,300 RPMs, so he's going to start the saw, and I'm going to try to count them, unless you have a better idea.
We can try that, or we can try an impulse tack. All this is going to do is pick up the impulses every time the coil fires. We're going to check the low idle RPM. It should be around 2,800, and high RPM should be around 13,500 to 14,000. So we'll see if it's close. If it's not, we'll tweak on it a little bit and try to get it where it needs to be.
That's a $10 tool that tells you how fast the engine's running. Does that work on all kinds of equipment or just a chainsaw?
No, it'll work on, if it's got a spark plug where it can pick up the impulse, it'll work. So
$10 right there. I'll put a link in the description for where you can get that on Amazon. Nothing against Mike. I've been impressed with how knowledgeable he is and what we've been able to inspect on this, but we didn't find much wrong. So I'll be shocked if there's a big improvement. There's only one way to find out. Hot dog! We went from 29 to 30 seconds. It's not a precise stopwatch, but that was clearly 24 seconds.
yeah, almost 25.
I think probably what made the difference is that little tuning adjustment. So as you were making that increase its RPMs at full rev by turning one of those screws. So which screw were you turning?
The H screws for your high RPM, and initially it looked like it was about 400 or 500 RPM less than what it should have been. So I just gave it a small bump up, and it made a 4-second difference.
Maybe something that every 5 years you own a saw, you need to just tweak something like that.
Just check it. Those impulse tacks are cheap.
Yep.
Get one and check your stuff.
So if you're just cutting up something every once in a while, limb falls off on a tree, you go get the old saw, you go outside and you're like, oh my goodness, I cut that 4 seconds faster. Who cares, right? But if you're gonna cut firewood for an 8-hour day, saw's heavy, it's hot outside, whatever the case is, it matters. And it's a reflection of how well the saw is running, is my thoughts on it.
And that 4 seconds over an 8-hour period is gonna add up quite a bit.
So I want to do the exact same thing with another chainsaw. Now we're not going to film the whole thing again. This is probably repetitive. We will take the 391, do a before cut, then we'll go through it and we'll only show you things that stand out if we find a problem. And then we'll do an after cut. this is a $700 chainsaw that I have compared to multiple other chainsaws, and it loses every time. When you're comparing to Echo, Husqvarna, and even the off-brand, super cheap Pro-Yama Amazon chainsaw, all of them have beat this in cutting time. And we're gonna find out if it's just that the Stihl 391 is a crappy chainsaw, or if mine's been neglected and needs a little bit of work. We'll have that answer in a minute. All right, so we went through the 391, did the exact same thing as the 250. Really didn't find anything wrong with it. But Mike has made some adjustments, and we're gonna try to summarize that for you here. And first I wanna say that whenever I run this saw, it feels like, especially I'm doing a timed cut, I get it revved up, it's been warmed up, I start cutting, I'm at full throttle, and if I put any pressure at all, or sometimes without putting pressure, I'll just feel it kind of bog down, and I'll have to back off just a little bit and then go again. Can you tell them what you were doing to adjust that, and when you were noticing kind of that little bog?
When you would initially get on the throttle, you could feel it's been real sluggish. So I ended up messing with the idle and the lower rich setting a little bit to get it sounding where I thought was better. We did check the high RPM on it. It was spot on, so we haven't messed with it any. So just small tweaks on this, and hopefully we'll see somewhat of an improvement from 25 seconds.
Yeah, and the screw you're adjusting there says LA, or is it the other one?
I messed with both of them.
Okay, and which one, that you were turning one of them, and I could hear the difference. You would rev it, and it wouldn't quite perform, and then that was the L?
That was the L. That'll be your low.
And for that, on the H, you were doing it based on the RPMs at full throttle.
Yes.
You could do the RPMs at full throttle on this one too, right?
Or
at idle RPMs.
Yes, that's your idle RPMs. Your H is your high.
And then on L, you were going off the sound.
Yes, I would give it throttle. You could see whenever I took it a little too far, and it became a lot more noticeable when you'd hit it.
I want to talk about the mindset of it working on your own chainsaw. So you're a guy like me. You run chainsaws quite a bit, and you don't feel like paying a dealership. But if I thought my saw wasn't running right, I'd go pay somebody to adjust those 3 screws, and there's only so much. Right. I mean, do you think the average guy is better off just leaving that alone, or is it something that it's not that hard to grasp and just try it?
I don't think it's that hard to grasp. It does help having the impulse tack just so you can check and verify, because there is a setting that they should be at low idle and high idle, and even the low rich normally is from the factory, it's like 3/4 to 1 round backed out from all the way in. So most people, I think, could get by with messing with this.
And those are, if it's not in your owner's manual, you can type into Google full throttle RPMs and find that number. And then what I noticed him doing on that screw that says L, as he was adjusting it with it running, before he adjusted it, he ran it like all the way one direction and counted turns. And said the setting it was at was backed out 1 turn, whatever that is. And then worst case scenario, you just put it back, so you don't have to be afraid of it, because you can note where it was.
Yeah, that's a biggie, is knowing we have a saw that runs. Okay, so we need to remember where those settings are. So finding a starting point, okay, this is where it was. Let's make adjustments from there. And if something goes wrong, we can put it back to where it was and it was fine.
All right, let's see if it cuts faster. The cool thing about a video like this is Mike knows a lot more than I do about chainsaws, and he's going to try to teach me things, and maybe that'll teach some of you guys. But also, there'll be, out of thousands of people who watch this video, there'll be 10 or 15 guys who are truly chainsaw experts who watch this, and they'll teach us something else that we don't know. So if you see something that we did wrong or you disagree with it, be polite and tell us in the comments ways that this information could be better. And if you're watching this and you want to learn, read those comments. One pull, baby! One pull! That's how we do it around here! Augie, we did all this testing and we did all this work, and it would have been a stupid video if it didn't cut any faster. But twice in a row, we've bumped that speed up. This time we went from 25 seconds down to 19. And I'd like to take all the credit for that. Oh wait, Mike did the work. Now if you watch, we didn't do anything complicated. We didn't find something terrible with the saw. It's more of a precision thing. But I was pretty impressed. I'm going to tell you the truth. When we were looking at the saw, I said this is going to be a bummer because we're not going to see any results.
Yeah. Sometimes just those little fine tweaks can make a big difference.
We got one more saw we're going to mess with right now, and that is my brand new Pro Yama saw. And obviously, it doesn't have a dirty, clogged up spark arrestor or anything like that. It's only been ran one time. But listening to the video, through the camera audio, he felt like he could tell it needed some adjustment. And we're going to see if we can get it to cut this same log faster. And if you remember from that video, this saw right there is a direct comparison to this saw. They're the same CCs, same horsepower engine, same size bar on them, both new chains. So we're going to do a direct comparison now between this one after it's been tuned a little and that one after it's been tuned. If you didn't see the earlier videos, the story is this is a $250 chainsaw. The other saws we've been running are $500 and $700. So that was 19 seconds. This saw matched the improved time after we tuned the other saw, which is not a bad performance from a saw that's a lot less expensive. Let's see if we can beat that or not. Before we start doing this, why don't you just tell them what your thoughts are on what you might adjust and why.
So,
based on what you heard or what you saw?
basically, I mean, it does sound a little different because it's got like a dual port muffler on it from the factory, but it sounds like it is lagging a little bit on the top end. So I'm going to mess with the H adjustment just a little bit and try to get that brought up a little bit more. And I think we'll probably end up shaving, I'm going to guess 2 to 3 seconds off of that time.
So that took that cut time from 19 seconds to 17 seconds. And that's not a dramatic, life-changing thing, but it's better or worse. It's running better than it was. All 3 saws are running better than they were when Mike got here. So my take here is that Mike has come up here and not charged me a dime, unless you've got an invoice written out, and made all of my chainsaws cut better. So now I owe him something. And the only way I know to pay him back is if you guys go over and subscribe to his YouTube channel or watch one of the videos. But I think this was a lot of fun. And he has brought a monster saw that he built himself. And we're going to race it against the 500i in another video. I appreciate you taking time to watch. I'll put links on the screen to a couple more of our videos, and I'll see you next time.